Grand Admiral Vector stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion, watching the stars stream past in brilliant lines of light. His scales gleamed under the soft blue lighting, reflecting the confidence of 3,000 years of unbroken imperial rule. The Caltharian Empire controlled 47 star systems, and every species they encountered had bent the knee within weeks. Some required persuasion, most simply understood the natural order of things. "Admiral, we approach the Proxima Tertius system," his tactical officer announced, mandibles clicking with anticipation. The human colony detected our arrival. Vector's mouth curled into what his species considered a smile. Humans, the newest species to stumble into faster-than-light travel barely 40 years ago. They had scattered across a handful of systems like seeds on the wind, establishing small colonies without permission, without acknowledging the Empire's authority. It was insulting. "Have they responded to our demands?" Vector asked, though he already knew the answer. "Yes, Admiral. They refuse to submit to Imperial law. They claim Proxima Tertius as sovereign human territory." The bridge officers chittered with amusement. Sovereign territory, as if these newcomers had any right to claim anything. The Empire had explored this region of space 2,000 years before humans had even invented the wheel. "How many ships guard their colony?" Vector asked. "None, Admiral. Just the colony itself. Approximately 50,000 inhabitants. However, they have transmitted a warning that military action will be considered an act of war." More laughter echoed through the bridge. Vector raised a clawed hand for silence. "They warn us? With what fleet?" "Intelligence reports indicate humans possess perhaps 200 vessels total, scattered across their primitive colonies. We have brought 200 ships to this system alone." Battle Group Crimson represented a fraction of the Empire's military might, but it was more than sufficient. Vector had crushed rebellions with less. The Tharnax uprising had involved 3 systems and fell within a month. The Yandari resistance had fielded 400 ships and lasted barely a season. "Prepare to enter orbit around the human colony. Charge all plasma batteries. Shields to maximum. We will demonstrate Imperial power, and these humans will learn their place." The fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel in perfect formation, a wall of gleaming ships that blotted out the stars. 200 vessels, each bristling with weapons, each protected by energy shields that had withstood everything the galaxy could throw at them for millennia. Below them, the human colony of New Horizon sat vulnerable on a blue-green world that reminded Vector of a dozen other conquests. "Admiral, we are receiving a transmission," the communications officer said. "It is from a human vessel. It just arrived at the edge of the system." Vector's eyes narrowed. "One ship?" "Yes, Admiral. It is broadcasting on all frequencies. Shall I put it through?" "Do so. I wish to hear what desperate plea they offer." A human voice filled the bridge, speaking in flat, emotionless tones through the translation matrix. "This is Captain Elena Voss of the United Solar Nations ship Defiance. You have entered human sovereign space with hostile intent. You have demanded the surrender of our colony. You have threatened military action against civilians. I am authorized to inform you that any attack on New Horizon will be met with overwhelming force. You have 1 hour to withdraw your fleet beyond the system boundary. This is your only warning." Silence fell over the bridge. Then Vector began to laugh. It started as a low rumble and built into a roaring sound that made his officers uncomfortable. One single human ship was threatening his entire battle group. "Locate this Defiance," Vector ordered, wiping moisture from his eyes. "Let us see what terrifying weapon the humans have sent against us." The tactical display lit up, showing a single contact at the system's edge. The Defiance was smaller than a Caltharian battlecruiser, but larger than a frigate. Its design was strange, all angles and armor plating, with none of the elegant curves that marked civilized shipbuilding. It looked brutal and ugly like the species that built it. "Analysis?" Vector asked. "The vessel appears to be heavily armed, but we detect no shield emissions. It is accelerating toward us at unprecedented speeds. Admiral, its drive signature is unlike anything in our database. Very high energy output." Vector studied the display. No shields. The fools had built a warship without defensive shields. They truly were primitives, relying on thick armor like barbarians of old. His own shields could absorb plasma fire from a dozen ships. This human vessel would be vaporized by his first salvo. "Battle Group Crimson, assume attack formation. All ships prepare to fire on my command." Let us show Captain Voss the price of threatening the Caltharian Empire. The fleet shifted smoothly, ships moving into positions perfected over centuries of warfare. Energy weapons charged, plasma torpedoes loaded into tubes, shields glowed with power. It was a display of force that had made entire civilizations surrender without a shot fired. The Defiance continued its approach, not slowing, not deviating. Captain Voss did not hail them again, did not beg, did not negotiate. Vector felt a tiny flicker of something unfamiliar. Not concern, surely not fear, perhaps respect for a warrior willing to die for her people no matter how foolish. 1 hour, she said. Vector mused. We shall give her 5 minutes. Then we will destroy her ship, pacify the colony, and humanity will learn the same lesson every other species has learned. The Empire is eternal. Resistance is futile. He looked at the tactical display one last time. 1 small ship against 200. It would be over quickly. Another minor conquest in the long history of imperial expansion. Another species added to the archives of the defeated. Grand Admiral Vector gave the order he had given 100 times before. All ships, open fire. The Caltharian fleet opened fire as one. 200 ships unleashing plasma batteries that painted space in brilliant shades of purple and green. The energy weapons crossed the distance at light speed, converging on the single human vessel that dared challenge an empire. Captain Elena Voss watched the tactical display from her command chair aboard the Defiance, her jaw set in a hard line. She had spent 15 years in the Solar Navy, working her way up from lieutenant to captain. She had trained for ship-to-ship combat in simulators that modeled every known alien species, but nothing truly prepared someone for this moment when theory became reality and lives hung in the balance. Evasive maneuvers, hard starboard, she commanded. Point defense systems active. All batteries prepare to return fire. The Defiance twisted impossibly fast for a ship its size, fusion pulse drives flaring like small suns. The Caltharian plasma fire tore through the space where the ship had been milliseconds before. Most of it scattered into the void. A few shots grazed the armored hull, scorching titanium ceramic composite plating but failing to penetrate. Minimal damage to outer hull, the tactical officer reported. Their weapons are powerful but slow. We can track and avoid most incoming fire. Voss nodded. The intelligence reports had been accurate. Caltharian weapons were energy-based, developed over millennia of fighting species that used similar technology. They had perfected shield warfare, where ships sat relatively stationary and pounded each other's defenses until one side broke. It was civilized. It was elegant. It was predictable. Humans fought differently. Load kinetic penetrators, Solution Alpha. Target their command ship and the 12 nearest battle cruisers. Fire when ready. The Defiance shuddered as railguns accelerated tungsten rods to 30% the speed of light. They were simple weapons, ancient in concept. Just metal cylinders, nothing exotic, nothing fancy. But when something hits with enough kinetic energy, shields became irrelevant. The projectiles crossed the distance in seconds. The Caltharian sensors, designed to track energy signatures, barely registered the solid metal rods before they arrived. The first penetrator struck a battlecruiser amidships, punching through the energy shield like it was not there at all. The shield was designed to deflect or absorb plasma and lasers. It had no answer for solid matter moving at relativistic speeds. The tungsten rod carried so much kinetic energy that when it hit the hull, the metal instantly vaporized from the friction and heat. The ship's armor melted. Its interior structure crumpled. Atmosphere explosively decompressed. The battlecruiser broke in half, both pieces tumbling through space-trailing debris and bodies. 11 more penetrators found 11 more targets. 12 Caltharian capital ships simply ceased to exist in the span of 5 seconds. On the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, Grand Admiral Vector stared at his tactical display in disbelief. 12 ships gone, not disabled, not damaged, destroyed completely. His shields had done nothing. His armor had meant nothing. What weapon was that? He demanded, his voice cracking with shock. Unknown, Admiral. We detected no energy signature before impact. Our analysis suggests solid projectiles but moving at impossible velocities. Return fire. All ships concentrate on that vessel. Destroy it. The Caltharian fleet adjusted, hundreds of plasma batteries tracking the Defiance. This time they anticipated its movements, creating overlapping fields of fire that would catch it no matter which way it dodged. Captain Voss saw the tactical problem immediately. They are learning, Activate point defense grid. Maximum intensity. What happened next would have seemed impossible to any military strategist in the Caltharian Empire. The Defiance carried 78 automated railgun turrets along its hull, each capable of firing 8,000 rounds per minute. They were not large rounds, just 20mm tungsten-depleted uranium shells, but they did not need to be large. They just needed to hit. The turret swiveled and fired, creating a sphere of metal around the Defiance. Every incoming plasma torpedo met a wall of bullets. The plasma destabilized and scattered. Some torpedoes detonated prematurely. Others veered off course. Not a single shot reached the human warship. "Admiral, their point defense is intercepting all fire," the Caltharian tactical officer reported, his voice rising in panic. "We cannot hit them." Vector's mind raced. This was not how battles were fought. Ships exchanged fire until shields failed. Boarding parties secured disabled vessels. Surrenders were negotiated. There were rules. There was order. The humans appeared to have no interest in rules. All ships, emergency evasive maneuvers. "Break formation," Vector commanded. But the Caltharian fleet had trained for formation warfare. They moved in coordinated patterns, beautiful and precise. It also meant they were clustered together, perfect targets for weapons that did not care about shields. The Defiance fired again. And again. Each salvo sent tungsten rods screaming through space. Each rod found a target. Caltharian ships exploded, broke apart, or went dead in space with their reactors ruptured. Captain Voss felt no joy in the destruction. She thought of the colony below, New Horizon, where her sister lived with her family, where 50,000 humans had built homes and farms and schools, trying to make a life among the stars. The Caltharians would have enslaved them or worse. "Captain, enemy fleet is attempting to withdraw," her tactical officer said. 38 enemy vessels destroyed. The rest are breaking off. Voss studied the tactical display. The Caltharian formation had dissolved into chaos. Ships fled in all directions, desperate to escape the killing field. Some were faster than others. Some tried to coordinate. Most just ran. "Pursue the command ship," Voss ordered. "I want Grand Admiral Vector to understand something very clearly before this is over." The Defiance accelerated, its fusion drives pushing it faster than any Caltharian vessel could match. It closed on the Eternal Dominion like a predator running down wounded prey. More kinetic penetrators launched, carefully aimed not to destroy but to cripple. Engines exploded. Weapon batteries were torn away. Shield generators overloaded within minutes. The Eternal Dominion drifted helplessly, its power failing, its crew trapped in a dying ship. Captain Voss opened a communication channel directly to the Caltharian flagship. "Grand Admiral Vector, this is Captain Voss. Your fleet came to our system to conquer us, to force us into submission, to threaten our families. You did not expect resistance. You certainly did not expect to lose. But you need to understand something about humanity. We have been fighting each other for 10,000 years. We have perfected warfare in ways your empire has forgotten. We did not want this fight, but now that it has begun, we will finish it. You have one chance to surrender. Take it." Grand Admiral Vector sat in his damaged command chair, emergency lighting casting red shadows across the bridge. Half his crew was dead. His flagship was crippled. His fleet was scattered and broken. In 30 minutes of combat, the certainty of 3,000 years had shattered like glass. He looked at the communication console where Captain Voss waited for his response. Surrender. The word tasted like poison. The Caltharian Empire did not surrender. They had never surrendered. They were the dominant power in this region of space, the civilizers, the bringers of order. But they were also survivors, and Vector was not too proud to recognize when survival required bitter choices. "Captain Voss," he began, his voice hoarse, "I request terms of surrender. My remaining ships will stand down. We will leave your system. Just cease fire." There was a long pause. Vector wondered if the human would even accept. Perhaps humanity was as savage as their weapons suggested. Perhaps they would simply execute him and his crew. "Acknowledged, Admiral. Your ships will maintain current positions. Any vessel that attempts to charge weapons or flee will be destroyed. We will send coordinates for prisoner transfer. Your wounded will receive medical care. Your dead will be returned to your empire with honor. But understand this. The next Caltharian fleet that enters human space will not receive a warning." The channel closed. Vector slumped in his chair, feeling every one of his 48 years. Around him, His officers worked to stabilize life support and tend to the injured. They moved like automatons, going through motions they had trained for but never truly expected to perform after a defeat. "Admiral," his communications officer said quietly, "High Command is requesting a full report. They demand to know what happened. What happened? How did Vector explain that a single human ship had destroyed 38 vessels and crippled dozens more? How did he tell the High Council that humanity possessed weapons that made their shields obsolete? That human ships moved faster and hit harder than anything in the Imperial arsenal? Tell them," Vector said slowly, "that we encountered an enemy unlike any we have faced before. Tell them that the humans are not primitives. Tell them that we were wrong." Light years away in the Caltharian capital system, the High Council convened an emergency session. The chamber was ancient, carved from a single piece of crystalline stone that had witnessed 3 millennia of imperial decisions. Council members arrived in a state of confusion and growing alarm, as preliminary reports filtered through from the Proxima Tertius system. High Counselor Rath Shan called the assembly to order, his age features grave. "Honored members, we face an unprecedented situation. Battle Group Crimson, 200 of our finest vessels, has been defeated by a single human warship. Grand Admiral Vector has surrendered. As of this moment, 162 of our ships are destroyed or crippled. 23 made it to the system boundary and have withdrawn. This is the worst military disaster in our recorded history." Silence gripped the chamber. Several counselors looked like they might faint. Others began shouting questions, demanding explanations, calling for Vector's execution for cowardice. Rathshan raised his hand for silence. "There is more. Our intelligence network has been analyzing human space. The warship that defeated us, the Defiance, is 40 years old. It is classified as a prototype. Our analysts have identified construction of 300 newer vessels in various stages of completion. Each one is estimated to be significantly more powerful than the Defiance." A junior counselor stood, her scales pale with fear. 300? But that would mean humanity has the capacity to field a fleet larger than our own core battle groups. How is this possible? They only achieved faster than light travel 4 decades ago. "Because," Rathshan said heavily, "while we spent 3,000 years perfecting administrative control and cultural dominance, humanity spent 10,000 years perfecting warfare. Every technological advancement they made was weaponized. When they split the atom, they built bombs that could destroy cities. When they harnessed fusion, they created weapons that could glass continents. When they reached space, their first stations were military outposts. Their history is one continuous cycle of conflict and innovation born from conflict." He brought up holographic displays showing human historical data that intelligence had gathered. Images of ancient warriors with primitive weapons, soldiers with chemical propellant firearms, aircraft dropping explosive payloads, nuclear detonations that dwarfed anything in Caltharian experience, spacecraft designed solely for combat. "They have fought themselves for their entire existence," Rathshan continued. "War is not something they study. It is something they live. And now they have turned those 10,000 years of experience toward the stars." A senior counselor from the military faction stood. "Then we must strike now before they complete their fleet. We mobilize everything. We crush them while we still have numerical superiority." "And send how many of our people to their deaths?" Rathshan asked. "We have 10,000 ships across the Empire. They have 300. But if each human vessel can destroy 100 of ours before it falls, the mathematics are not in our favor. And what if they have more weapons we have not seen? What if this was them showing restraint?" That thought chilled everyone in the chamber. The Defiance could have simply continued firing until every Caltharian ship was destroyed. Instead, Captain Voss had accepted surrender. She had promised medical care for the wounded and honor for the dead. That suggested a species that understood mercy even in the midst of their terrible violence. "What do you propose?" another counselor asked. "We propose," Rathshan said, "what our empire has never done before. We negotiate peace, not from strength, not from a position of dominance, but as equals. We recognize human sovereignty over their claimed systems. We establish borders and trade agreements. We learn from them as they learn from us. Or we continue on the path of conquest and watch our empire burn." The debate raged for hours. The military faction demanded revenge. The diplomatic faction urged caution. The economic faction calculated the cost of war versus peace. In the end, a narrow majority voted for negotiation. Ambassador Reshkan, known for his wisdom and adaptability, was chosen to represent the Empire in discussions with humanity. Meanwhile, in human space, Captain Elena Voss sat in her ready room aboard the Defiance, staring at a photo of her sister's family. She had saved them. She had saved New Horizon. But she had also killed thousands of Caltharian crew members who were simply following orders from an empire that thought conquest was their right. Her first officer knocked and entered. "Captain, we have received communication from Earth. The Solar Council wants you to report for testimony about the engagement. There is already debate about how to proceed." Voss nodded. Of course there was debate. Humanity had just announced its presence to the galaxy, not with diplomacy but with devastating violence. Some would call her a hero. Others would call her a war criminal. She was neither. She was simply a military officer who did what needed to be done to protect her people. "Prepare the ship for departure. We will return to Sol System as ordered, but first make sure the Caltharian wounded are stabilized. Their dead are properly prepared for return. We may be warriors, but we are not monsters." Ambassador Reshikan stood before the full Imperial Council, his diplomatic robes feeling heavier than usual. He had served the Caltharian Empire for 30 years, negotiating trade agreements, resolving border disputes, and managing the integration of newly conquered species into Imperial society. He had always done so from a position of strength, backed by the Empire's military might. Now everything had changed. "Honored counselors," he began, "I have reviewed all available intelligence on humanity. What I have learned disturbs me greatly, not because they are monsters, but because we fundamentally misunderstood what they are." He activated a holographic display showing human history. Humanity evolved on a world they call Earth. It is a harsh planet by our standards with extreme weather variations, dangerous predators, and limited resources. Early humans were not apex predators. They were prey. They survived through intelligence, cooperation, and an almost unbelievable stubbornness. When a predator hunted them, they hunted it back until it was extinct. When resources became scarce, they fought each other for what remained. When diseases ravaged their population, they studied the diseases until they conquered them. The council members watched images of human history unfold, tribes warring with stone weapons, empires clashing with bronze and iron, nations destroying each other with industrialized warfare, the two world wars of the 20th century, where humans killed hundreds of millions of their own species, the nuclear age, where they built weapons capable of rendering their entire planet uninhabitable. They have known war for their entire existence, Reshkan continued. Not war as we understand it, with rules and honor and clear objectives. War as total commitment to the destruction of their enemies. They have a saying, war is hell. They know this because they have lived it for 10,000 years. A counselor interrupted. But they are divided. Our intelligence shows they have multiple governments, competing nations, different ideologies. Surely we could exploit these divisions. Reshkan's expression darkened. That is exactly the kind of thinking that led Grand Admiral Vector to attack them. Yes, humanity is divided. They argue among themselves constantly. Their governments disagree on nearly everything. But when threatened by an outside force, they unify with frightening speed. They have a concept called international law that they apply even when fighting each other. They have rules for warfare, conventions for the treatment of prisoners, agreements about which weapons are too terrible to use. Then we came along and ignored all their warnings, demanded their submission, and threatened their civilians. We became the outside threat that unified them. He brought up new data. Since the Battle of Proxima Tertius, human governments have formed something called the United Defense Coalition. Every major nation has contributed ships, weapons, resources. Their entire economy has shifted toward military production. They are building warships faster than our best estimates predicted possible. More concerning, they are sharing technology freely among themselves. Weapons that took them decades to develop are being distributed to all their fleets. They have gone from a scattered collection of colonies to a unified military power in less than a month. How many ships can they field? The military counselor demanded. Current estimates suggest 300 capital ships within 6 months, 1,000 within 2 years. Their industrial capacity is staggering. They have automated manufacturing, artificial intelligence managing production, and a population willing to work around the clock to defend their territory. Every human seems to understand engineering at a basic level. Every human has basic military training. They are a civilization built for war, even when they are at peace. Reshkan paused, letting the numbers sink in. But perhaps most concerning is their weapons development. We have identified 12 major human weapons programs that have no equivalent in our arsenal. Kinetic weapons we already know about, but they also have something called nuclear-pumped lasers that can blind our sensors from light years away. They have artificial intelligence-guided missiles that can track targets through evasive maneuvers. They have mines that can hide dormant in space for years before activating. They have boarding drones that can cut through hull plating and disable ships from within. And these are only the weapons they have tested. Our intelligence suggests they have theoretical weapons they have not yet built because they consider them too dangerous. The council chamber was silent. Every member understood the implications. The Caltharian Empire had never faced an enemy like this. Species they had conquered were often more advanced in some areas, more culturally sophisticated, more philosophically developed. But none had been as militarily capable. None had spent their entire existence preparing for war. What do they want? High Counselor Rathshan asked quietly. Surprisingly little, Reshkan said. Their diplomatic communications have been clear and consistent. They want recognition of their sovereignty over systems they have colonized. They want guarantees of non-interference. They want the option of peaceful trade and cultural exchange. They do not demand tribute. They do not seek to conquer our worlds. They simply want to be left alone to develop their civilization in peace. And if we refuse? Reshkan met the High Counselor's gaze. Then we will be at war with a species that considers total war acceptable. They will not fight to conquer us. They will fight to ensure we never threaten them again. That means destroying our military capacity completely. Our intelligence suggests they have contingency plans for strikes against our shipyards, our industrial centers, our fleet bases. They have mapped our entire empire. They know where we are strong and where we are vulnerable. If we force them to fight, they will fight with every weapon they have, including ones we cannot imagine. A younger counselor stood. You speak as if we have already lost. We are the Caltharian Empire. We have ruled this region of space for 3,000 years. We have more ships, more systems, more resources. How can we simply accept this humiliation? Reshkan turned to face her. Because pride is not a military strategy. Because refusing to accept reality does not change reality. Because 3,000 years of dominance means nothing if we throw it all away in a war we cannot win. I am not saying we have lost. I am saying we have encountered something new. A species that does not fit our understanding of how civilizations should behave. We can adapt, learn, and find a new path forward. Or we can insist on the old ways and watch our empire crumble. The debate continued for days. Intelligence reports kept coming in, each one more concerning than the last. Human ships conducting training exercises near Caltharian borders. Human diplomats making contact with other species in the region, species that had chafed under imperial rule. Human scientists publishing papers on advanced weapons theory that made Caltharian researchers feel like children. Finally, High Counselor Rathshan called for a vote. The motion was simple. Authorize Ambassador Reshkan to travel to Earth and negotiate a peace treaty with humanity. Recognize their sovereignty. Establish formal diplomatic relations. End hostilities before they escalated into full war. The vote passed by a narrow margin. The military faction promised this was not over, that the empire would rebuild and eventually settle the score. The diplomatic faction argued that pride was not worth extinction. The economic faction calculated the cost of peace versus war and concluded peace was infinitely cheaper. Ambassador Reshkan prepared for the journey of his life. He would travel to Sol System, to the homeworld of humanity, and negotiate with beings who had proven they could destroy his people, but were willing to talk instead. He did not know what he would find there. He did not know if peace was truly possible, but he knew that trying was better than the alternative. Ambassador Reshkan's transport emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Sol System, and he immediately understood he was entering something far different from what he expected. The system was not just inhabited. It was claimed, defended, and controlled with military precision. 3 human warships moved to intercept his vessel before his pilot could even transmit their diplomatic credentials. They were newer than the Defiant, sleeker and more menacing. Weapon ports tracked his ship with cold efficiency. Reshkan felt a chill run down his spine. These humans were not celebrating victory or gloating over their defeated enemies. They were watching him like he was a potential threat. Caltharian vessel, this is the USNS Vigilance. Transmit your authorization codes and state your purpose. You have entered restricted military space. Any deviation from assigned flight path will be considered hostile action. Reshkan personally took the communication channel. This is Ambassador Reshkan of the Kaltharian Empire. I come under diplomatic immunity, authorized by both our governments to negotiate peace terms. My vessel is unarmed. There was a pause. Confirmed, Ambassador. You will be escorted to Earth Orbital Station. Do not alter course. Do not activate any scanning systems. Welcome to Sol System. The journey inward gave Reshkan time to observe humanity's home. The system was heavily industrialized. Asteroid mining operations on a massive scale. Orbital construction yards building dozens of warships simultaneously. Defense platforms around every inhabited world. This was not a civilization preparing for war. This was a civilization that had already mobilized for war and was now building the capacity to fight it across multiple systems. Earth itself was beautiful from orbit, a blue marble wrapped in white clouds. But surrounding it were dozens of military stations, sensor arrays, and weapon platforms. Even approaching their homeworld for peace talks, humans kept weapons pointed outward. The orbital station where Reshkan docked was both impressive and unsettling. It was huge, capable of handling thousands of visitors, but most of it seemed dedicated to military coordination. He saw human officers moving with purpose, their uniforms crisp, their expressions serious. These were not the barbaric primitives he had been taught to expect. These were professionals who understood their craft. Secretary General Chen Xiaoming met him in a conference room that overlooked Earth. She was a small woman by human standards, elderly with gray hair and eyes that had seen much. She bowed slightly in the human custom, which Reshkan returned with his own species' gesture of respect. Ambassador Reshkan, thank you for coming, Chen said, gesturing to a seat designed for his physiology. I hope your journey was comfortable. It was enlightening, Reshkan replied carefully. Your system is quite well defended. Chen's expression did not change. We learned an important lesson from your Grand Admiral Vekthor. Peace requires strength. No one attacks those who can defend themselves effectively. Reshkan could not argue with that logic. Secretary General, I come to negotiate an end to hostilities between our peoples. The Kaltharian Empire acknowledges that our approach to first contact was flawed. We made assumptions about humanity that proved incorrect. We are prepared to recognize human sovereignty over your claimed systems and establish formal diplomatic relations. That is an excellent start, Chen said. But I need to be clear about something. My government and the governments of all human nations are unified on certain principles. We will not submit to any external authority. We will not allow any species to threaten our people. We will not tolerate aggression against our colonies. If your empire can accept these principles, we can build peace. If not, we will build more warships. The bluntness was refreshing after years of diplomatic doublespeak in imperial courts. Reshkan appreciated it. I understand. But you must also understand our perspective. The Kaltharian Empire brought order to this region of space. Before us, dozens of species fought endless wars. We ended that chaos. We created stability. When we encountered your colonies, we expected you to join that order as others had done. Chen nodded slowly. Ambassador, may I show you something? She brought up holographic images. They showed a human colony world called New Horizon, but these images were from 3 months ago before the Battle of Proxima Tertius. Reshkan saw families, children playing in parks, farmers tending crops, teachers in schools. It was peaceful and innocent. 50,000 people lived there, Chen said quietly. My chief of staff's daughter lived there with her family. Captain Voss's sister lived there with her children. When your fleet arrived and demanded surrender, threatened military action, what were we supposed to think? That you would peacefully integrate us? Or that you would do what empires throughout history have always done to those who resist? Reshkan felt a weight settle on his chest. He had read the reports. He knew what Vekthor had planned. Occupation, subjugation, forced integration into imperial society. It was standard procedure. It had always been standard procedure. We did not see you as people, Reshkan admitted. We saw you as another species to be categorized and controlled. That was our mistake. Our great terrible mistake. Yes, Chen agreed. And it cost thousands of lives on both sides. Your people died because your admiral thought we would not fight back. Ours would have died if we had not been prepared to defend ourselves. Ambassador, we do not want to be your enemies. But we will not be your subjects either. The only path forward is as equals. They talked for hours. Reshkan explained the empire's structure. its history, its concerns about human military expansion. Chen explained humanity's diversity, its internal conflicts, its desire to explore and grow without external interference. Slowly, painfully, they found common ground. The Treaty of Proxima was signed 3 weeks later. It established clear borders between human and Caltharian space. It created trade agreements and cultural exchange programs. It required both sides to share information about threats to mutual security. Most importantly, it recognized that two different civilizations could coexist without one dominating the other. Captain Elena Voss attended the signing ceremony. She stood in her dress uniform, decorated with medals she had not asked for, and watched humanity take its place among the galactic powers. The Defiance had been decommissioned and turned into a museum ship, orbiting New Horizon as a reminder of the price of freedom. Voss did not feel like a hero. She felt tired. She still saw Caltharian ships breaking apart in her dreams, still heard the screams over communication channels as crews died. War was necessary sometimes, but it was never glorious. After the ceremony, she found Ambassador Reshkan on an observation deck, staring at Earth. "It is a beautiful world," Reshkan said without turning. "I can see why you fight so hard to protect it." "All worlds are beautiful to those who call them home," Voss replied. "Even yours." They stood in silence for a moment. Two people from different species, different cultures, different philosophies. One had ordered an attack. One had defended against it. Neither had wanted war, but both had done what they believed was right. "What happens now?" Reshkan asked. "Now we learn to live with each other," Voss said. "We trade, we talk. We disagree without trying to destroy each other. It will not be easy. There is too much pain, too much anger on both sides, but it is better than the alternative." 10 years passed. The border between human and Caltharian space became less a barrier and more a meeting place. Human students studied Caltharian mathematics and philosophy. Caltharian students studied human engineering and history, though the military history courses often disturbed them. Joint research stations explored questions neither species could answer alone. The peace was not perfect. There were incidents, misunderstandings, moments when old hatreds threatened to reignite. But both sides had learned the cost of war. Both sides chose dialogue over violence time and again. Then a new threat emerged at the galactic rim, the Vexenari swarm, a species unlike anything either humans or Caltharians had encountered. They did not negotiate. They did not trade. They consumed worlds and moved on, driven by instincts neither humans nor Caltharians could understand. For the first time, human and Caltharian ships flew together in combat formation. Human kinetic weapons and Caltharian energy shields complemented each other perfectly. Human tactical flexibility combined with Caltharian strategic planning. What neither could achieve alone, together they accomplished. In a command center on Earth, Secretary General Chen watched the joint fleet engage the swarm. Beside her stood Ambassador Reshkan, now a permanent diplomatic resident. "We are stronger together," Reshkan observed. "Yes," Chen agreed. "It only took us almost destroying each other to figure that out." "Better late than never," Reshkan said, using a human phrase he had learned. They watched the battle unfold. Two species that had been enemies now standing as allies, facing a future neither could predict. The galaxy was vast and full of dangers, but it was also full of possibilities. Humanity had proven it belonged among the stars. The Caltharian Empire had learned that dominance was not the only path to survival. Together, they would face whatever came next.